afternoon. This listening session of the Montana Public Service Commission is called to order, and I appreciate your being here. It's a good turnout. I'm Annie Bukacek, Commissioner for District 5 of the Montana Public Service Commissioner. For the record, it is currently 2 o'clock. It's Tuesday, August 15th, 2023, and we are conducting this listening session from the Bollinger Room at the offices of the Montana Public Service Commission in Helena, Montana, and also by Zoom. The purpose of this session is to receive public comments on Northwestern Energy's 2023 Integrated Resource Plan, which has been assigned Commission Docket number 2022.11.102. This session is a continuation of the public comment period, which officially opened in May of this year when the Commission issued a notice of opportunity to comment. The Commission encourages all commenters to review the IRP, which can be found on the homepage of the Commission's website under the What's Trending heading. Answers to many of your questions may be found in the detailed explanations and tables included in the IRP. If you have not read it in time for this listening session, you are of course still welcome to comment today, but note there will be 3 more sessions you can attend in person or on Zoom, and our legal representative will be giving you locations and times in just a few minutes. This listening session is an opportunity to hear comments from any interested party, and as a result it will not follow a question and answer format. The Commission and staff are here to listen to you, and beyond these opening remarks, we will not be giving any comment. Please note that this listening session does not concern Northwestern Energy's request for increased rates for electric and natural gas service, which has been assigned docket number 2022.07.078. I will ask all commenters to please stay on the topic of Northwestern's 2023 Integrated Resource Plan, and I will now ask Commission staff Legal Counsel Lucas Hamilton to summarize the docket.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll begin with a brief summary of the law regarding resource planning. Under statutes enacted by the Montana Legislature and administrative rules adopted by the Montana Public Service Commission, each public utility that provides electric and natural gas service must prepare and file a long-range plan every 3 years. This long-range plan is known as the Integrated Resource Plan, or IRP. The planning process advances the state's interest in efficient utility operations, efficient use of utility services, and efficient rates. Among other elements, a public utility's integrated resource plan must include an evaluation of the full range of cost-effective means for the utility to meet the service requirements of its Montana customers, including conservation or similar improvements in the efficiency by which services are used, an annual electric demand and energy forecast, an assessment of the planning reserve margins and contingency plans for acquiring new resources, an assessment of the need for additional resources and the utility's plan for acquiring resources, the proposed process the utility intends to use to solicit bids for energy and capacity resources, and descriptions of at least 2 alternate scenarios that can be used to represent the costs and benefits of increasing amounts of renewable energy resources and demand-side management programs. The utility must fully explain, justify, and document the data and assumptions it used to develop its plan. If the utility's plan meets the minimum filing requirements established by statute and administrative rule, Montana law does not give the Commission the authority to formally reject a utility's plan. Instead, the law requires the Commission to review the plan, publish a copy of the plan, and allow for public comment on the plan, and provide at least 2 public meetings for the purpose of receiving comment. The Commission may also comment on the utility's plan and identify deficiencies. Comments from the Commission may not be construed as approval of any proposed resource. To reiterate, the Commission does not approve or disapprove the utility's plan. The law simply requires the filing of the plan, but it does not allow the Commission to expressly approve any proposed resource. By law, the Commission can only offer comments on the plan which cannot be construed as an approval of any resource identified in the plan. Turning now to the present docket, on April 28, 2023, Northwestern filed its 2023 plan with the Commission. The 2023 plan evaluates different potential generation resources that can meet the needs of Northwestern's electric service customers in Montana over the next 20 years. According to the 2023 plan, the resources best suited to address Northwestern's needs are flexible natural gas generation and long-duration energy storage resources. The plan does not identify specific new resources for addition to Northwestern's resource portfolio. Consistent with its statutory authority, the Commission has contracted with an independent consultant to assist the Commission in evaluating models used by Northwestern to develop its 2023 plan. The Commission issued a notice of opportunity to comment, as Chair Bukacek mentioned earlier, on May 26, 2023, and a notice of listening sessions on July 21st, 2023. Although the law requires the Commission to schedule 2 public meetings, the Commission has decided to host 5 public meetings on Northwestern's 2023 plan. This is the second of the 5 meetings. The Commission previously held a listening session on August 14th, yesterday, in Great Falls, Montana. In the future, the Commission will also hold meetings on August 16th, starting at 6 p.m. at the Board of Oil and Gas Conservation Headquarters, located at 2535 St. Johns Avenue in Billings, Montana. On August 17th, starting at 6 p.m. in the Butte Silverbow Public Archives, located at 17 West Quartz Avenue in Butte, Montana. And on August 22nd, 2023, starting at 6 p.m. in room 340 of the Missoula College Learning Center, the River Campus, located at 1205 East Broadway Avenue in Missoula, Montana. The public is welcome to comment at any of the upcoming listening sessions, either in person or remotely. To participate remotely, please contact the Commission by 5 p.m. on the day before you intend to provide comment. You may also email PSCHelp, that's PSCHELP, at mt.gov, or call 1-800-646-6150. As stated in the Commission's May 26 Notice of Opportunity to Comment, the deadline for public comment on the 2023 plan is August 28, 2023. The Commission and its staff will review all timely public comments when preparing its own comments on the plan. Madam Chair, that concludes my summary of this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. And again, I appreciate you all being here. It's a really great turnout. We're here today to listen to public comments. As a result, this meeting will, again, as I said before, it will not have a question and answer format. The Commission and staff will not be commenting today or answering questions. If certain technical questions arise, I may defer to the Commission's legal counsel. Please be mindful of your use of time so that others have adequate time to comment. Comments should be delivered professionally and respectfully. Commenters should please confine their remarks to the specific topic of the listening session, which relates to Northwestern's 2023 Integrated Resource Plan. The Commission now invites members of the public to comment. Please remember to speak into the microphone. State and spell your name. State where you are from. We do not need your physical address, just the town where you live. And please also identify any organization on whose behalf you are speaking, if you are here representing anyone other than yourself. We will begin with commenters in the room. Are there commenters in the room? You're the closest. Go ahead and step up.
I'm Sue Cronenberger. Is this on?
Maybe shift it up a little closer to the wall.
Sue Cronenberger. My name is Sue Cronenberger, Kronenberger. I'm from Helena, Montana. And Commissioner Brown, Commissioner Hamilton, Commissioner Bukacek, Commissioner Pacini. I speak today assuming that you and most people in this room have children or grandchildren. And whether you do or not, I'm asking you to consider that what we decide in this process will affect future generations in a big way. I will be brief. I think you have all the science already about what is needed for entities such as the state to do. The United Nations has already given out, based on great scientific fact, that every entity, state and corporations, should take radical, aggressive action to reduce fossil fuel. And the plan lacks this. It lacks going toward a more direct and aggressive development of renewable sources. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next. Doesn't matter.
Madam Chair, or Madam President, I guess for the moment, I'm not sure. Yeah, commissioners. My name is Ann Hedges with the Montana Environmental Information Center, and I want to thank you very much for going above and beyond what is required in the public hearing process of the statute. I really appreciate it. I know everybody here and at every other hearing really is going to appreciate the fact that you are listening to the people who are going to have to pay utility bills and fund what Northwestern plans for our energy future. So we really appreciate it. And as you know, this plan is the foundation upon which Northwestern will move forward to determine our energy future. It will determine what our rates are, maybe not directly, but very much indirectly. It will determine what our energy mix will be, and it will determine whether we can afford our energy mix, both from an environmental perspective, from an affordability perspective, and from a natural resource perspective. So this plan is very important. Montanans need the Public Service Commission to step in and protect electricity customers from Northwestern Energy's proposed energy future that Montana simply cannot afford. While there are many good people who work for Northwestern Energy who do a great job at keeping the lights on, Montanans need to be able to afford their utility bills. Northwestern's plan fails to create a blueprint for our energy future that keeps our electric rates affordable and accounts for the severe and destabilizing impacts of fossil fuels on our climate. I had a very different speech that I was going to give as of yesterday, and the court decision in the First Judicial District changed what I wanted to say. Not many people have had the opportunity to read the over 100-page decision that Judge Seeley released yesterday, but I have. And I want to talk about how that decision interacts with Northwestern Energy's resource plan and our energy future. So the PSC may not have to comply with Montana Environmental Policy Act, but the decision yesterday will have a profound impact on our energy future. To quote the decision, the MEPA review would give DEQ the necessary information to deny permits for fossil fuel activities when inconsistent with protecting plaintiffs' constitutional rights. The state must either have discretion to deny permits for fossil fuel activities when the activities would result in greenhouse gas emissions that cause unconstitutional degradation and depletion of Montana's environment and natural resources, or the permitting statutes themselves must be unconstitutional. This changes everything. Let me explain why. The court ruled that the state must be able to deny fossil fuel projects, something the state has never done before. They must do so based upon their impacts on the climate. The state cannot, when the statutes are, the state cannot allow these fossil fuel projects to move forward under statute, and if they do, the statutes are unconstitutional. So that means that as DEQ considers Northwestern Energy's current and future proposed gas plants, expansion of coal plants, permits for coal mines that feed the Colstrip power plant, or other fossil fuel infrastructure and projects, it must consider how the project will impact our climate. And it must be able to deny those permits. And the court agreed that every additional ton of carbon dioxide matters to the world, and this is coming from the world's most credible scientists. Fossil fuels are causing the climate crisis, and Montana is not just some podunk state that has no impact on the global climate. Montana's fossil fuel industry that feeds Northwestern Energy's insatiable appetite for expensive fossil fuel infrastructure matters in the global arena. This is a quote. Data indicates that in 2019, the total annual fossil fuels extracted in Montana led to about 70 million tons of CO2 being released into the atmosphere once the fuels were combusted, which is higher than many other countries, including Brazil, Japan, Mexico, Spain, and the United Kingdom. Montana matters on the global stage. Northwestern and the PSC can no longer automatically assume that Northwestern will get the permits to fulfill the current plan by building more fossil fuel projects. And alternatives truly must be considered that are affordable and reliable. This IRP makes the erroneous assumption that Northwestern can continue business as usual and receive any and all permits for future fossil fuel projects. This is no longer the case, and the PSC should object to this IRP because it cannot be relied on going forward. MEIC will provide written comments. There are innumerable technical problems with this IRP. We will be submitting those, but I wanted to make sure that the PSC today could hear how this case is going to play out over time in regard to this resource plan. It is incredibly relevant and it truly changes everything. Please help protect consumers from this utility that is refusing to consider our energy future and is going to result in our electric bills skyrocketing to a place that Montanans simply cannot afford. We urge you to take all of this into account and protect Montana consumers from this utility that seems to only have a one-track mind, and that's more fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you, Hedges. Next.
My name is Don Harris. I live in Montana City. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to the commissioners, although I am disappointed that 2 are missing. I would like to know for sure that they're hearing these comments. I'm also disappointed that Northwestern Energy's not here. So, I'll keep this brief as well. I was here 4 years ago, and the IRP then was just like this one. The same outdated, antiquated, expensive, dirty proposals. It's real simple. Northwestern Energy customers would like affordable electricity. They would like electricity that doesn't pollute our air and water. And they would like electricity that does not promote climate change. So, there are so many people frustrated, but what do? You can write to Northwestern Energy, and I have, and you might get a response. It'll be a canned response from their public relations people, and it's the usual propaganda. What else can I do? Well, let's say I want to generate my own power. Well, many people are discouraged because every 2 years, Northwestern Energy goes to the legislature and spends God knows how much money trying to make it so it's not feasible. Many people are just discouraged. They would do this. So we feel helpless. So what do? We stand here in front of you, the commissioners, and ask you for help. So Northwestern Energy can provide us with affordable energy that is clean and does not promote climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to clarify for the record that Commissioner O'Donnell is online.
Commissioners and staff, thank you for this opportunity to comment. My name is Rob Freistad, that's spelled F-R-E-I-S-T-A-D-T. I reside in Helena, and I'm speaking as a citizen. The Montana Public Service Commission strives to ensure that ratepayers have continued access to utility services that are affordable, reliable, and sustainable for the long term. Last October, Northwest Energy received an increase of over 12% in their rates. Our long-term national rate of inflation is 3.28%. Northwestern's profits have increased on average 7% per year over the last 2 years, and Montanans, while they pay the 41st lowest in rates amongst the states, we have the 38th lowest income of all states, and I think that's important to keep in mind. USA Today ranked Montana as one of the 10 worst states to make a living in because of low wages and above average costs of living. Our reliance on burning coal at Colstrip is the second most costly form of electricity that we have, while the Judith Gap wind operation actually is the cheapest. With Montana wind speeds increasing by as much as double over the last 70 years due to climate change, why aren't we pursuing more innovative ways of capturing this form of energy? According to Global Energy Monitor, Colstrip is the 9th dirtiest energy producer, costing almost $250 million in medical costs to individuals, and that figure ignores the complications in health, learning, and behaviors in children who suffer due to the adverse effects of breathing the effluent from Colstrip. Yet, Northwest Energy increases its investment in this facility while other energy providers are jumping ship. One must question the decision-making at Northwest Energy in this regard. During the summer months, I personally produce 1 megawatt of electricity from my 27 rooftop solar panels, which cost me less than $20,000 to install. Solar and wind production are the cheapest sources of energy production, and while we struggle with efficient ways to store energy, I would think that Northwest Energy would be investing heavily in solar and wind at the point of consumption as a way of maximizing efficiencies, reducing future upgrades to its delivery infrastructure, and reducing our reliance on forms of energy production that are proven harmful to health. Montanans are guaranteed through their Constitution a clean and healthful environment, and especially in light of the recent court ruling upholding well-documented climate science, the time is now to reevaluate energy development and the archaic management of Northwestern Energy. They must not be given the blank check they request, but must feel the pressure to adapt to a changing environment. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Marie Bourgeois, Bourgeois. I live in Helena. I'm required to receive my energy from Northwest Energy and pay what they charge. As I'm committed to doing my part to reduce the use of fossil fuel, I spent a portion of my retirement income on solar panels for my home. Northwest Energy is not doing their part to move towards a clean energy future by submitting a plan that doubles down on the expensive fossil fuels that increase pollution rather than investing in affordable energy systems that support families and communities without damaging our environment. Here in Montana, we want a utility that provides a plan for the future that we can afford and one that will help us transition to a clean environment. The current plan is designed to increase profits for Northwest Energy executives and shareholders, while customers like me pay the cost with increased electrical bills and serious health issues. You have been elected to stand up for ratepayers. I'm asking you to do your job. The 2023 IRP puts our community at risk and would result in an energy system that is unaffordable, unreliable, and ignores health, safety, and the prosperity of citizens in our state. Other states have started the transition. Why are we waiting in Montana? I request that you, as my representatives on this issue, to do the following. Ask for an unbiased third-party study to model renewable scenarios that include storage technologies. Require Northwest Energy to diversify its portfolio to more affordable energy sources with fewer environmental costs. Require Northwest Energy to consider the social and financial cost of carbon in their plan, as required by the recent court case filed by children. Require Northwest Energy to commit to a goal to net zero carbon emissions by 2030 and develop a reasonable plan to reach this goal. I'm asking you to man and woman up to the reality of a changing climate and adopt a policy that refuses rate increases based upon added cost of existing or new fossil fuel generation. I hope you have the courage and stamina to make the best decision for Montana's energy and environmental future and put the public service back into your commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners and staff, my name is Howard Shervam. I live in Helena, Montana, and I'm employed by Northwestern Energy. And we just would like to thank you for doing the 5 listening sessions to get responses from the consumers and the citizens of this great state on what we have proposed going forward, as we're required to every 3 years. Thank you very much for that. And thank you to the individuals that are here speaking their mind. Thank you.
Can you spell your last name, please?
I would, yes. SKJERVEM, just like Smith. Yeah. Thank you.
My name is Jim Campbell. I live here in Helena, Montana. For the last 82 years I've been here, so I've been here a long time for a lot of observation. I just basically want to mention an observation that I've noticed in the last 8 years. It seems like every time I go up to the legislature during the legislative session, there's always several bills that Montana Power is promoting or denying, and that the public service commissioners are there to work as the public service, not for Montana or for Northwestern. And so I would just like to see if could be a study that every time there's a bill that comes up, whether you lean towards the public or lean towards Northwest Energy. I feel, just as an observer, that a majority, if not 80 to 90% of the time, you lean towards the lobbyist of the Northwest Energy Company rather than the public. Thank you for taking my comments.
I've got a visual. Commissioners, my name is Sue Debree, D-E-B-R-E-E. I'm a retired pastor living here in Helena. I'm also, speaking for my family, mostly, a grandma, great-grandma, and I'm speaking for my children. I grew up in the shadow of the missions. Commissioner Busacek, you will recognize this picture, perhaps, from your district, I think, isn't it? It's the Mission Mountains, 100 and some years ago. This was on my grandfather's living room wall. And all we had to do was look out the window to see that. I drove up that hill by Ravalli this last summer, and there was not a speck of snow on the Mission Mountains. Even the snowpack underneath the sheep's head, iconic image, was gone. This is in my lifetime of 80 years, catching up with you. I've seen the changes, and I'm really concerned about the future for my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I know that there are alternatives out there. I don't think that this plan addresses those possibilities and alternatives. I'd like to make public some information that I have from Montana Cares that speaks, I'm going to read just a little of it, but I'm going to give you a copy because there's a lot of statistics and numbers in here that I don't even understand, but other people are smarter than I do. The gas-fired electric plants are less competitive now than before the August 2022 Federal Inflation Reduction Act, and that tax incentive will accelerate deployment of cleaner, cheaper electricity. So there are things there that need to be considered that will help with us saving money in moving towards more renewable energy use. And if utilities, regulators, and legislatures facilitate Montana's share of that, in savings for our taxpayers by the start of 2025, there are new resource plans that could include updated costs that accurately represent new tax credits, deliver ratepayer savings with cleaner options, and demonstrate how IRA funding sources such as the Energy Infrastructure Reinvestment Program can revitalize coal communities, which I think is important, like Colstrip in Sydney, while also reducing the federal deficit in the first 9 years. There are all kinds of things that can be considered and included in the plans that aren't at this point. And this references Minnesota and Colorado and what other states in our area are doing to develop a more active investment in the renewable energy field. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for making it available to us here and across the state with the 5 hearings. I really appreciate that.
Commissioners, my name is Hugh Zackheim, and that's Zackheim, and I'm the volunteer chair of Sleeping Giant Citizens Council. We're a community-based organization working for sustainable resource management in Lewis and Clark, Jefferson, and Broadwater counties. We have about 200 member families in the area, and here's what they're telling me to tell you. Our members want the right to direct our energy future. We want the ability to use the sun, the wind, and other renewable energy sources. We want to move our state in the direction of zero carbon emissions so the next generations, our kids and grandkids, don't have to live under an increasingly extreme climate that jeopardizes Montana's agricultural economy, tourism industry, river system, forests, and overall quality of life. We don't want a static 20-year energy plan developed by a monopoly utility that is incentivized for maximized profit and has a track record of hindering, not supporting, a move to non-carbon energy. We don't want an energy plan locked into expensive, polluting resources, especially when more affordable energy resources with fewer social and environmental consequences are available. Montanans also want more of the kind of jobs produced by our alternative energy sector, jobs that pay well and require a can-do approach, skilled labor, and contribute much to our local economies. We recognize that the issues are complicated, given emerging storage technologies, rapidly decreasing renewable energy costs, diverse methods of integrating renewables into existing energy supply systems, opportunities for cooperation with other regional energy producers, grid considerations, and so on. That's why it's crucial that the PSC retain an independent consultant with the knowledge and practical experience in these arenas to outline alternatives to NorthWestern's unacceptable business-as-usual approach. Sleeping Giant members want to be responsible to create the change in our energy systems that's sorely needed now, and they know that it's not only possible, but mandatory to reverse the approach proposed by Northwestern. It's now up to the PSC to act on this crucial opportunity. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Roxa Reller, last name spelled R-E-L-L-E-R. I live in Helena. Thank you for taking public comment on Northwestern Energy's Integrated Resource Plan. I know you have many things to consider, so I'll limit mine to about 4. The law allows the Public Service Commission to consider externalities for a regulated utilities integrated least cost resource plan. MCA 69-3-1204, Section 3B. Now the court is saying you have an obligation to protect our clean and healthful environment. Judge Seeley's order in the Held v. Montana case, page 101, line 7, item 65, is clear. Undisputed testimony established that clean renewable energy is technically feasible and economically beneficial in Montana. You have technology options to consider. We don't have to wait for new technology. We have affordable, renewable resource technology now. Wind, solar, solar voltaic, battery storage, and pumped hydro. These resources should be considered in more depth. So you have the law, the Constitution, and technology to consider. Finally, please consider Montana families. Montana families are being used as an ATM. We need a plan we can afford. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Will Swearingen, Swearingen, and I'm here today speaking as a Northwestern Energy ratepayer. I'd like to briefly challenge two key points in Northwestern Energy's resource plan. First, Northwestern claims that it needs to acquire Avista's share of Colstrip's Unit 3 and 4 so it'll have reliable on-demand power. Well, countering this is the fact that Units 3 and 4 are now nearly 40 years old. These units have had major reliability problems. For example, Unit 4 had to be shut down for 6 months in 2009, again for another 6 months in 2013, for 2.5 months in 2017, and numerous other times for shorter periods up to the present, shorter periods that haven't been publicly divulged. So these antiquated plants are not reliable and they should be retired. A second Northwestern claim is that acquiring Avista's share of Colstrip makes good economic sense because Avista is giving away this share. However, Avista is giving away the share because it knows it's a liability, not an asset. We know that Colstrip is already the most expensive energy resource in the Northwestern portfolio. In fact, Northwestern won't divulge what it's now paying for coal, and we can only assume this is because the cost of coal is so expensive. So, in conclusion, the PSC shouldn't let Northwestern Energy double down on its ownership of the most expensive resource in its portfolio and then stick ratepayers with covering the high costs of fuel, operations, maintenance, and ultimately cleanup. Especially because Colstrip is an antiquated, unreliable facility and our electricity rates are already the highest in this region. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more commenters in the room?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Mary Ann Dunwell. I'm a state senator. I represent Helena and East Helena. That's SD 42. And I'm here today to speak to you because as a legislator, our Montana Constitution gives me the responsibility, the obligation to uphold our clean and healthful environment. And yesterday, this was underscored by that wonderful ruling by Judge Kathy Seeley and the success and victory of our Montana youth. I just want to say this IRP will be really expensive over the next 20 years, both in dollars and cents to ratepayers and in health and environmental costs. It doesn't uphold our right to a clean and healthful environment. I noticed in the paper over the weekend an article by Tom Ludy stated that Northwest Energy is the only utility in the country for adding coal in its plan and not subtracting it. And I happened to I happened to be at a conference, a National Caucus of Environmental Legislators, when that article came out, and I read it to some of my legislative counterparts around the country, and they're like, "You're kidding me, right?" Some of them laughed, and then some of them really felt sorry for us. So, as far as dollars and cents, there's all kinds of resources out there now, in the Inflation Reduction Act, funding for renewable generation, but not for coal and fossil fuel. That Colstrip plant is already costing Montanans too much money. The cost of coal ash cleanup can be up to $700 million. And that new natural gas plant in Laurel, I think it's just a move to pad the rate base for shareholders and not provide really capacity for ratepayers. You know, some of the things I learned at this conference was that, you know, there's all kinds of opportunities for progressive moving forward generation, wind and solar, and geothermal. Montana's got a lot of geothermal. And guess what? We could repurpose some of the old spent oil and gas wells and use that as a pathway to get to the geothermal. It was amazing. And then, you know, we hear that our grid might not be ready. Well, it is ready. I mean, there are grid enhancing technologies out there that are already used by many states. You know, the thing I'd like to see is that Northwest Energy considers energy beyond its footprint and beyond its pocketbook, really, for shareholders, and you know, start a regional transmission organization and in the West. I know some other states are really interested in that because, you know, the wind is blowing somewhere all the time, and it just doesn't make sense to be an island when all these things are happening around us. It makes us look clueless, frankly. I'm sorry, it does. And I think I've said enough. Thank you. Thanks for hearing us today.
Thank you very much.
Commissioners, Robert Filipovich, F-I-L-I-P-O-V-I-C-H. I live in Helena. I'd like you to keep in mind two perspectives when making your decisions regarding this particular plan. You'll find a pretty concise, factual presentation of the history at the federal level of the issues involved here in, of all places, Jimmy Carter's Our Endangered Values, Chapter 15. It's concise, it's factual, published in 2005, but it at least helps me to understand what's going on today with this plan here. And secondly, I certainly hope that the PSC will make its decisions based on the science and the facts. Physics, chemistry, biology, and even, such as they are, financial facts. Because if we don't do that, the special interests, let's leave it at that, will have dominance and control over this process. And it's for that reason that I think this plan is inadequate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Ross Nelson. I'm from Helena. That's R-O-S-S-N-E-L-S-O-N. When you look at the report put out by Northwest Energy, it tends to focus on technical issues, and I would like to suggest that you also consider the human issues involved. We've known about global warming for over 100 years. The first calculation was done in 1896 by Nobel Prize winner Svante Arrhenius. And that date is interesting because that is about the same date that we have temperature records for Helena, Montana. And I've collected all the temperature data for Helena, Montana for the last 120 years. And the average number of days above 90 degrees in that era, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, was about 5 days per year. The average is now currently 35 days per year. And that increased heat is literally killing people. Maybe not so much in Helena just yet, but the number of cases of heat-related deaths in the United States has doubled since the 1970s.
Sir, I appreciate your interest in this, but if you could stick to the topic of the IRP, please.
Well, my point was the IRP does not address human issues, and those are important. But thank you.
Thank you. Any more commenters in the room?
Wrote this down so I wouldn't be as nervous as I was the last time. So my name is Jim Edwards, Edwards. I live in Helena, Montana. I'm 68 years old, a retired business owner of Mountain West Benefits, which was a benefits consulting company. That was my area of expertise. My partner and I started the Montana Health Co-op. But I took a real interest in this issue some time ago. I have a brother who spent his entire career as an engineer for Exxon in their coal division, and a brother-in-law who was a petroleum engineer and spent his career with Amerada Hess. This is relevant to what we're talking about. So over the last 3 years, I invested about 150 hours reading books, and to the extent that I could comprehend scientific articles on the effects of fossil fuel consumption, the effects of carbon dioxide emissions that result from the consumption, and how this affects the Earth in the way of global warming. And while I'm not going to submit to you today, I will in the near future, copies of internal reports done in the 1980s, one by Exxon and one by Shell, where their company's scientists provided management their predictions and analysis of what the effects of their products utilization would have on the Earth in future years, based upon their modeling and predictions. If you take the time to read these reports, I believe it was WikiLeaks that made them available, and thus any person can download them and read them. But you'll find that 40 years ago, many of the things that are happening today, from extreme weather events to the diminishing glaciers to wildfires, on, these things were all forecasted. They had also forecasted quite accurately today's level of CO2 concentration. And these things were forecasted by these leading energy companies 40 years ago. Neither company took responsibility for their products. In fact, Shell suggested, and the reason I'm here, is that the main burden of addressing climate change rested with the government, which I'm going to suggest is you folks, and with consumers, which is us folks. Shell and Exxon chose to behave almost identically to the tobacco companies as they had behaved 30 years earlier. They buried their research. And when the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, was formed in 1989 and began to highlight the dangers of global warming, the energy industry, again, same as the tobacco industry had done years earlier, they hired scientific experts and provided information contrary to what Exxon and Shell's own company scientists had provided them in their internal studies. Montana and the PCS must recommend to Northwestern Energy that renewable energy resources are being found to work adequately for other states, for other utilities, when it comes to being a reliable source to address loss of load exposure due to peak load challenges. To rely on coal is backwards thinking and in conflict with both where the industry and where regulators across our entire nation are headed. As was mentioned earlier, it was just determined yesterday in the recently decided court case that really to allow Northwestern Energy to rely on coal instead of renewables is unconstitutional. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more commenters in the room or out in the hall? One step forward.
Commissioners. My name is John Herron, Herrin. I reside in Helena. Just a little background, just so you get a feel for it. I'm a scientist doing environmental consulting on private deals, but 17 years with the state of Montana. And of that 8 years, my first 8 years out of college, I worked for the state lands, writing environmental impact statements on all the major coal mines, 19 different draft and EISs, final EISs for Colstrip, and including Anaconda's massive pre-Superfund sites. In analysis of the Colstrip units, basically said in the EIS in '84 that the brine ponds were likely leaking and causing groundwater pollution, which, as Mary Dunwell has said, it was costing a projected $700 million in liabilities, and the existing bonding amount is about half that at $350 million. So who's going to pay that extra $350 million in liabilities? They're having to pump and flush all the contaminants, and it's unconscionable that they were allowed to operate and get permits and move forward for many years with leaking brine ponds polluting the groundwater. All they did is buy up the groundwater rights for the ranches downstream and didn't have to own up to their responsibility. In addition, replacing coal seams, which tend to have carbon, which is catches calcium and different kinds of soluble nutrients in groundwater, you place that with overburden, then coal mines more than likely, and I haven't done the research since the 80s, of whether coal mining is actually contributing to the groundwater pollution we're seeing at Colstrip, but other places too. And that's probably very well documented someplace, but it needs, for the Public Service Commission, in my mind, it needs to. So I guess the major point that I'd like to say is that I think that the Public Service Commission needs to do and hire an independent consultant to do an environmental assessment that basically factors in global warming, but also the residuals that have a bearing on groundwater quality, overall lifestyle. And I'm going to have a kicker at the end of this that's going to blow your mind as far as global warming goes, because it's something that nobody is talking about hardly. The second thing that I'm requesting that the PSC do is that they deny the idea of buying into a failing power units 3 and 4. That right now they're at about 230 megawatts, which is about 15% of the power load, and they're proposing to add double that with the purchase of Vista's shares. And so, but there's still only if you take that, they're only 30% of the total load. So the 70%, the other owners are either going bankrupt, which Avista is, or bailing out. So who's going to carry the other 70% of that power units? And that's something that you need to, as Public Service Commission, evaluate. Northwest Energy is giving us a line that Colstrip is reliable, right? But it's, as prior speakers have spoke to, the reliability is really horrible when you're looking at 40-year plants that should have been daylighted before, and units 1 and 2 are already gone. They're dinosaurs and basically dying on the vine. So what kind of liability is the Public Service Commission allowing us ratepayers to be on the hook for maintenance and all the issues and environmental issues that are going to go along with it? Are they going to assume some of this liability? Can they prove that the brine ponds now are not leaking? And is somehow that we're going to have a future hit as far as that goes? Also, Colstrip is one of the only plant in the United States that doesn't have baghouse, and looks like there's going to be federal mandates for that to clean up their stack emissions for all kinds of health reasons. But beyond that, I guess the more important issue, and by the way, just a side note, is I sold a 34-acre tract of land to a solar farm on Green Meadow Drive here in Helena, and I'm glad we did that, but it was because I got crosswise with the county over subdivision regulations and had to sue them 6 times, winning $750,000 in the process. Judge Seeley's ruling is, I guess, a landmark deal. We're sitting at a crossroads right now, and I think that's what it's saying, is that Public Service Commission and all state agencies need to recalibrate and look at the whole issue of climate and climate change. Now, you all are probably fairly familiar with the dire straits that we're in as far as increasing CO2. Methane's 20 times to 30 times more reactive to, as a global warming, I guess call it almost like your windshield and heat trapping mechanisms. So one of the I'll give you a couple bad news is there's more methane trapped in the tundra of the northern parts of the world and then also Antarctic. And as we warm up, that 20 to 30 feet of organic matter that's been trapped under ice forever is now being released. In fact, in Russia, you get lakes blowing up with methane gas blowing out. Now that's methane, that's again 20 times more reactive. So I think part of what we're seeing, and I don't see a lot of, documentation on this, but as we start to melt all that area, that the threshold for global warming is going to go up. I mean, we're at a tipping point right now. We're starting to see an exponential growth pattern. We're at 2.3 degrees Fahrenheit increase since, I think it was 1980, or it might go back probably the 1900s. And they're saying that the threshold is 3 degrees, so that means we're less than a degree from that tipping point, which they projected at 2040. But I don't think that's accurate. I think it's going to be much, much quicker. So in the next 100 years, our sea levels are going to rise 1 to 6 feet. Even a 1 foot increase is monumental, especially when you get wave actions and hurricanes, so forth, hitting the coastline and damaging all the resources. Now, if you look at where the major money, real estate and investments worldwide are, they're in that 1 to 2 feet of the oceans, right? And we look at, like Florence is a perfect example, Italy. They're basically...
Tie this up.
Huh? What?
Tie it together, pull it together.
Oh, tie it together. Well, anyway, the global warming, having the oceans, we can't afford the trillions and trillions of dollars in investment to rebuild those structures all around the world. There's this absolutely, most countries in the world are extended in debt, and then we look at trying to replace all that infrastructure. But the bad news and the kicker in all this is that as we warm up, we're going to melt more of the ice sheets in Iceland. Researchers in Europe just got through doing a modeling exercise on the Atlantic current. And the Atlantic current is key to keeping us where we're at right now. We've had, in the last 80,000 years, 8 different cycles of glaciation period in 80,000 years, 800,000 years. What this research is saying is 95% probability that the world will go into an ice age in the near future, and that near future is anywhere from 2 years to the mean being 2057, which is 24 years. The outside is 2095. So roughly in the next generation's time period, we're going to possibly, more than likely, go into a glaciation period, which the last glaciation period, Helena, right now where we're sitting, is under 20 feet of water. Missouri River was dammed up. Clark Fork River was dammed. Missoula was under 150 feet of water. We will not be living here.
More directly.
Instantaneous. What I'm saying is this is important to you because you need to make a decision whether you can allow us to keep burning coal when we have alternatives. Now, in the Northwest Energy's plan, they did not do a very good job of talking about what alternatives. So what alternatives are there? Well, there's vertical stacking of power units. There's a new company that's come out when they're 3 times the more efficient in their design, and they stack these up, and they've got solar panels on the side. And those things can be put in any urban areas, so the distribution problem becomes not a point. It only takes up 5% of the land, and they're much more efficient. And so that is one solution. The second solution is this reservoir in Martinsdale, which is basically a water storage system. I don't know why it's not going forward. I heard there was economic troubles, but to my mind, Northwest Energy could be investing in that. It seems to me that just using power of water, excess power, run the water up, and then use generators to come down would be an absolutely fantastic alternative. Another alternative that doesn't seem to get much weight is small nuclear, 1/4 of the size of the ones that melt down. France is selling those all over the world, and they're very reliable. So I believe that an alternative energy, just storage, they're coming up with new batteries and concrete that has metal in it that's you can put in 1-foot layer in a concrete basement and have all the storage you need forever. You can put these in the bottom of solar panels. So there's going to be huge technical changes in the next future. And I don't think Northwest Energy or the Public Service Commission so far, in the way they've allowed them to keep moving forward with the same old model, is looking forward enough to say that there's going to be solutions that we don't even see. And we need to force them to hit this target of net zero carbon emissions by 2030, period. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commenters in the room or in the hall? Come on forward.
All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Caitlin Pizercia, that's spelled Caitlin, last name Piserchia. I'm speaking here on behalf of the Montana chapter of the Sierra Club, and we thank you for the opportunity to comment today. So as an organization, we have thousands of members across the state of Montana, most of whom live in Northwestern Energy's service territories. And we are here because our organization believes our members and all Montanans deserve an energy system that supports the health of our communities, as well as the health of our water, air, land, and climate. Montana Code states that it is the policy of the state to supervise, regulate, and control public utilities. It is further the policy of the state to encourage utilities to acquire resources using a competitive solicitation process and in a manner that will help ensure a clean, healthful, safe, and economically productive environment. Right now, it's clear that Northwestern Energy's plan, which will guide their future resource investments and solicitations, is not intended to ensure a clean, healthful environment or an energy system that's affordable for ratepayers. I hope you will work to ensure that this plan is altered to reach these goals and truly serve the public interest. First, we hope that you, as you are considering this recent IRP, you will keep top of mind that there is very good reason to suspect that Northwestern Energy may still be cooking the books in order to make sure their model selects the outcome that would result in the largest profits for executives, but does not serve ratepayers. The company's model concludes that business as usual is the best course, and the rest of the plan seems intended to provide justification for that choice. But their choice of model requires accurate inputs and an accurate assessment of future opportunities and risks. So we urge you to require transparency on their modeling inputs and to move forward in engaging a reputable independent consultant to both analyze their inputs and model alternative options. Although the company claims to value renewable resources just as much as any resource, their actions show otherwise. Northwestern Energy seems to support unduly propping up expensive fossil fuel resources at nearly every turn in recent history. In this most recent legislative session, Just a couple of the many bills Northwestern Energy lobbyists showed up to support were SB 228 and SB 208, two bills that constrict local energy choices in Montana communities to explicitly favor fossil fuel companies. Both bills now make it more difficult for local elected officials to do their job protecting the public interest, including public health and safety. In this most recent plan, Northwestern Energy's model seems to devalue renewable energy in favor of more expensive polluting resources. It does not consider how a balance of energy efficiency, demand response strategies, energy storage, and renewables together could help meet Montana's energy needs. It doesn't adequately consider the policy and regulatory environment that we're moving into. And although it considers some of the tax credits available, it does not otherwise consider the billions of dollars available in federal funding through the recent IIJA and IRA laws intended to accelerate the transition to clean energy, which includes support for energy efficiency, renewables, transmission, and energy storage. The plan also doesn't consider the risks of further investing in an exorbitantly expensive methane gas plant that's widely opposed by locals in Laurel. I think it's important to also keep top of mind that the majority of Montanans are concerned about climate change. Polling shows that the majority of Montanans recognize that the climate crisis is harming people. The majority recognize that it will harm future generations. And the majority support regulating carbon dioxide as a pollutant. It is risky for our largest utility to make choices for the next 20 years that directly oppose these concerns. The recent Held v. Montana decision also makes Northwestern Energy's choice to invest in polluting methane gas plants extremely questionable. We're also concerned that the comprehensive independent study produced by Vibrant Clean Energy has not received due consideration by the utilities planners as ETAC advised. Northwestern Energy's response to this suggestion made on the last IRP is listed in this recent IRP and is brief. Quote, as the modeling in the plan demonstrates, Northwestern Energy's need for capacity cannot be met by solely renewable sources. This conclusion does not square with the conclusions of the study, which found several affordable pathways for Montana to achieve decarbonization. Montanans deserve an affordable energy future that shores up the health of our communities and truly serves the public interest. As you well know, our utility system is an adversarial one that unfortunately incentivizes Northwestern Energy to pursue more expensive resources and to justify that choice. Getting a result that's different requires aggressive intervention from our commissioners. We urge you to help us get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next commenter in the room? Or online, or out in the hall? Any commenters left? Okay, seeing none, we'll ask for commenters online. Are there any commenters online? None? Okay. So seeing no further public commenters, we're ready to adjourn this session. And again, answers to many of your questions and concerns can be found reading the Integrated Resource Plan itself. And it can be found on our homepage under the heading, What's Trending. So I highly recommend you do that. And, the Commission will also continue to accept public comment in writing and by phone. To provide public comment, please call the Commission at 800-646-6150 or email the Commission at pschelp@mt.gov. Please remember that the deadline for public comments is August 28th of this year. Thank you for your comments. The time is now 1:09 p.m. and this listening session is now adjourned. Thank you.